Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this first session on Introduction to Big Data in Hadoop. This is Teja from QH. So, guys, we can start with introduction. So, as we have done with quick introduction of ourselves, let us start with the introduction of Big Data. There are basically two reasons for you to attend for this demo. Reason one, to get a job, obviously. Reason two, to get a decent job. Right. So whatever it may be, the reason. So we're all here, to earn some bucks and to make our life better tomorrow than today. That's the concluding point. So let's understand what exactly is big data. I have taken a scenario here. Consider there is a multi-specialty hospital chain, a group of hospitals, which has spread across few states and in few countries. And you can imagine such kind of a huge research-oriented hospital will collect billions of entries from various sources. The sources can be a doctor prescription or a medical, record, or it can be some sensor data coming from the patients, like they can have some digitized BP monitors, heart rate monitors, and they have some specialized equipment which will continuously monitor the health and the functionality of various organs of the patient. And it will continuously push that particular data into the servers. So this is one kind of a scenario. And another kind of a scenario you can take. So here we are discussing basically, data. When it comes to big data, what do you mean by big? The big in terms of size, the big in terms of the velocity. So both volume and velocity are pretty much important and very important attributes for any data. So previously what happened when enterprises and corporates, they are getting the information, the sources of information is very, very limited. That means if you take how hospitals will function in 1990s and in the early of 2000, they have a lot of the core functionality of hospital never changed the same way the hospitals are working today onwards, but the way they are accumulating the data has been changed a lot. So previously the data collecting points can be a doctor's prescription, or it can be digitized by the medical transcriptioners, or we have some manually entered log sheets at the patients, or human entered computer generated informations. So this is how the transformation has went from. But now we're all in the era of sensors. So what the sensor will do, at every minute, at every second, it will continuously push lot of data into the servers. If you take a GPS which has been installed on a truck, or it can be a sensor which is continuously monitoring the heart rate of a patient. So whatever it can be, the accumulation of data has been tremendously, enormously grown like anything, right? So when corporates started accumulating huge amounts of data, the immediate question arises is how to store the data. Someone can come and they can answer, you have mainframes, you have warehouses, we can store the data inside the mainframe, we can store the data inside a warehouse. Excellent. What is the purpose of storing the data? We don't store the data just for the sake of storage, right? We store the data because if we process the data, we can get better insights of the business. and we can develop better business models, and corporates can take better decisions based upon the data, so that they can service their customers much better and they can enhance their businesses. That is the main crucial point of any corporate. So here the immediate question arises is, before big data, is this not answered? The answer is yes, because before big data, when some company wants to process couple of billion records, they have to spend almost 1 week of time to process a couple of billion records. This is very time consuming process, right? So to put a question and to put a solution and for a question to give the answer, people started finding to implement better technologies into their existing software development practices. And one of the thing is big data. To better understand big data, still we need to dig in what are the various scenarios or domains where huge amounts of data has been accumulated. And this is an example here. According to the definition, you can see here, if someone asks you what is big data, this is the definition. So big data is a collection of large data sets. That is point number one. And the point number two, that cannot be processed. That cannot be processed using traditional computing techniques. This is the important point we have to remember. So this information we cannot process using traditional computing techniques. So what are the traditional computing techniques? As we have discussed earlier, this is a mainframe, or it can be a warehouse, right? So they are not just helping it, because they are taking huge amounts of time to process it, okay? And that is what the big data is all about. So big data is a collection of large data sets that cannot be processed using traditional computing techniques. So what are the various sources or examples of big data? And these are the list we have. One is the black box data, which is installed in helicopters and aeroplanes and jets. And the other one, you know, this one everybody will agree, social media data. It could be Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. And the other one is stock exchange data. Everywhere, millions of people will buy and sell the commodities and shares on the stock exchange. So this is another best example. And also the smart grid. When the smart power grids wants to get the data. And the next example is transport data, what we have seen in the earlier slide, and also the search engine data. So these are all just, you know, a drop in the ocean. There are so many other domains which are just inclined to use the big data practices into their software development. So when we have this, then what is the solution? What is the technology that helps us to store big data and to process big data? The answer is Hadoop. Okay, so what is this Hadoop? That's what again we have to understand. Okay, so here as we are discussing, for any data there are three attributes which we have to remember. Attribute number is, you know, we have the different types. One is the structured data. The other one is semi-structured data. The other one is unstructured data. Basically the data has been divided into three categories: structured data, semi-structured data, and unstructured data. We just say big data, but when you categorize them, this is how it has been categorized. So what do you mean by structured data? We also call it as relational data. So any data that is coming from a database, that is called your structured data, because the data which is stored in the database will have a proper structure, right? So it will have a table structure, it will have columns, it will have column names, data types, constraints, lot of things are there, right? So that is called structured data. And the other one is semi-structured data. It is not coming from the database, but still the data will have some format, like XML data, okay, and JSON data, which we discuss in our sessions. All this comes under semi-structured. They are not fully structured like a table in a database, but still they will possess their own format. And the third variety is unstructured data. It is called raw data. So text files, Word documents, log files, all this comes under unstructured data. So unstructured data here, they don't follow any unique structure. When I say table, wherever you go, the table will have the same structure. The table will have rows and columns. But when it comes to semi-unstructured data, like a text file, I can write any different format in my text file, and you can write in a different format in your text file, right? So altogether, the processing of the unstructured data will change a lot, if you agree with me. So that is the three categories of data what we have. And moving forward, so let us try to understand what exactly is Apache Hadoop. Okay. So we have to understand what exactly is Hadoop, and that too people call it as Apache Hadoop. So what made Hadoop coming under Apache? So what is the history behind it? Just for our quick understanding, we can go over it. So way back in the year 2003, Google has released a white paper, a research-oriented paper called GFS. The GFS stands for Google File System. Okay, so you guys are all basically from computer science background, so I'm very much happy to share even a little deeper insights of what exactly is Google File System. Okay, so we know the concept of distributed computing, right guys? So in the distributed computing, we have the concept of distributed storage, right guys? So what do you mean by distributed storage? Before distributed storage, we have the concept of centralized storage, right? So what happens in centralized storage? There will be a big server, and whatever data we want to save, that particular data has to be simply entered into this particular big server. Whatever data we want to store in the entire enterprise, we have to store all the data in the same single server. That is called centralized system or centralized storage. Then the problem here is, if something went wrong, if the server crashes, you are going to lose the whole data. So this has gone. Then people started working on DS, distributed storage. So in the distributed storage, what will happen? You have, instead of single machine to store the data, you have group of machines. And all the machines are connected to each other. It can be any other topology, okay? Some mesh topology or star topology, any other damn topology. Okay? And this we can call it as a cluster. When we have a cluster, when we want to store the data, we don't store the data all in a single machine, rather than we store the data on set of machines. So here, this is called distributed storage. So what happens in the advantage of distributed storage? If this is gone, you are not losing the whole data. You are just losing only portion of the data. Still you have the other data available in the other systems. So that is the starting stages of distributed storage. Taking forward, what happens to process the data? What Google has done, Google has created a research paper called Google File System. And in 2004, Google has enhanced its research and they have released a particular thing called MapReduce in 2004. Okay, so what is the main agenda behind MapReduce is, this is the scenario we are talking about, right? So in this scenario, there is a server and there is another server, and if you want to store the data, we are just storing the data like this here. And if you want to process the data, there will be another, 1 second guys. So there will be another big machine standing over here, and whatever data we want to process, the data has to migrate from the storage layer to the processing layer, and the data comes here. Then the data get processed, and again the processed data will be sent back to the system. So when the data we are storing, when the data wants to get processed, the data has to travel from the layer to the processing layer. So this is the processing layer and this is the storage layer. Okay, so even though you are storing the data in different places, if you want to process the data has to travel again to a single central processing component. Google doesn't want this to happen. What is the idea of Google? Wherever you have the data, there only you have to process the data. No need to move the data here and there. So with the MapReduce, what Google has want to achieve, if my data is stored here, if I want to process the data, please process here itself. If my data is here, if I want to process the data, please process here itself. So that is called complete distributed computing. Previously we have seen distributed storage, right? Now we are talking about distributed computing. So even my computing is also distributed. My computing is not happening on a single server, rather than my computing is happening on set of servers, right? So that is called distributed computing. So in a MapReduce, we can do both. We can do distributed storage and also we can do distributed computing. Got it? So that's the main breaking point. That's the innovation. That's really technology changing, disruptive discoveries that has been made by the researchers at the Google. To take them much further, to give better shape and better visibility, in the year 2006, there are a couple of researchers from Yahoo, and the one is called Doug Cutting. Please remember this guy. Until you are in the big data field, you have to remember this guy. Okay, and the other one is Mike, okay, one of his colleague at Yahoo. And they have taken this MapReduce into the next level, and they have established a set of framework around MapReduce. Now they want to give a name to the newly invented technology. And as Doug Cutting's son is playing with a toy elephant, that elephant, the name of that elephant, they are calling it as Hadoop. And just, coincident or accident or whatever it may be. From then onwards, the project has been named after his son's elephant, Hadoop, and the logo of Big Data is also Hadoop. Okay, that is how the history behind this. And in the year 2006, Yahoo has donated this project to Apache Software Foundation. And from 2006 onwards, Hadoop is an open source. If anybody wants to implement Hadoop, you are almost welcome, free to download, free to implement. Nothing to pay in a single penny to any other consortium. Okay, so that is the thing about this Apache. Hadoop. Okay. Hope it's interesting, and let's move forward to the next slide. Here we go. So what can we do with Hadoop? That's what, right? So that's the interesting thing we can do with Hadoop. So these are few of the examples. We can do a lot of things in Hadoop. The first thing is ETL. So what is this ETL? ETL stands for extract, load, and transform. Okay? ETL. We say ETL, but when we pronunciate, we say extract, transform, and load, but we say extract, load, and transform. Okay? That is called ETL. So what is this ETL? You might have heard about Informatica. You might have heard about data warehouse, right? So in your colleges and in your some courses, when you are browsing online or something like that, ETL. So what is this ETL is all about? This is your relational database, okay? And this is your presentation layer. You are using a Tableau or some other visualization tool to display some graphs. How this data is coming from this part to this part. Who is able to get the data, and who is able to process the data, and who is able to visualize the data. That is called ETL. Getting the data from the data source and do some processing, and finally transform the data and load the data into some visualizations. That is the complete end-to-end scenario of ETL processing. So Hadoop is very, very best in this kind of ETL processing. Okay? And also Hadoop can be used as an exploration engine. What do you mean by exploration engine? Say, when you give some color papers to a small kid, okay, what they will do, they will explore. Somebody will make, kites, somebody will make some ships, somebody will make some, rockets. So they will explore into multiple things, the same piece of material. But after the same piece of material, the small kids with their creativity, they will do different lot of things, right? If you apply the same sort of creativity on a higher range on about the data what you have, the companies can get very better insights. Sometimes companies may overlook some of the facts, but if you keep on processing your data, you will get lot of hidden secrets from the data. That is called data exploration. To understand the data much better, people will do data exploration. And also the data archival. Data archival means what? To store the data, historical data. All the enterprises want to store the historical data, right? They don't want to lose their data. They want to store it. And when it comes to hospitals and insurance agencies and some government agencies, by law they have to store the data. So where to store the data? Hadoop can be used, one of the data archival mechanism, to store the data on the clusters. Clear guys as of now so far? Any questions? Good. And we have seen structured and semi-structured. Okay. Let us say the father of big data, Gartner. So what Gartner says, this is a very fundamental definition. So big data is basically high in volume, high in velocity, high in variety of information that assets that demand cost-effective, innovative forms of information processing for enhanced insight and decision making. See, these are very important here. When you provide any solution, today you can be a software developer, but after a couple of years, you may be a team lead and product manager and solution architect. But this is the basic definition we have to understand. See, there are beautiful words hidden in this small sentence. Okay, the thing is cost effective. Excellent one. Whatever solution you are providing for big data problems, that solution should be very, very cost effective. That means you should not increase the cost just for the sake of solution. Okay, and this is a very beautiful thing. And also 3 V's: volume, variety, and velocity. These are called 3 V's of big data. Volume means the size of the data. How much size we have? Some companies may have millions, some companies may have billions, some companies may have trillions of records. So that is called volume. And when it comes to velocity, the speed at which we are accumulating the data. Okay, so on a normal day, when it comes to e-commerce websites, on a very dry and dull day, probably in the July month, there is no festivals, there is no Thanksgiving, there is no something, nothing is happening. All the e-commerce portal will run a lot of very, very dry business. But when it comes to Christmas season, when it comes to Thanksgiving, and in India when it comes to Diwali or Dasara, you can see how much of hits the online e-commerce portal will accumulate per day. So that is called velocity. In some days we acquire more data, in some days we acquire very. So the speed at which we acquire the data is called velocity. If there is more data, more hits, we can call it as more velocity. If there are less number of hits, we can call it as less velocity, right? So always velocity resembles the increase of the data. And variety. So variety means what? Different sources, right? Which we have seen: structured data, semi-structured data, unstructured data. So that is called your variety of informations. Okay, so that is called the main theme of big data, 3 V's. Okay, guys, let's move on to the next slide. Now, I want to show you a overall picture of Hortonworks. Okay, so this is the main thing, and this is what we are going to accomplish. Let me brief you that, the big data ecosystem. So in this first session, we are not going to discuss any internal architecture, how big data works, everything. So big data is not a small thing to discuss in a one quick session, right? So, but we try to understand more about the vocabulary. So far we have seen what is big data and what are the 3 attributes of big data and what are the different types of data that are available and what Gartner says and the history of Hadoop and the services of Hadoop like ETL and archival. We have seen many services. Okay. Now, when it comes to the ecosystem of big data, there are so many things. So this picture explains you different vocabularies that are involved in the big data landscape. So in just like Linux, we have developers, we have Linux administrators. In big data also we have big data developers and big data administrators and big data security specialists. There are different roles and individually you have to perform. Okay, so this is a development course. So we concentrate more on the Hadoop development scenarios. So in this is the core thing, HDFS. When it comes to Hadoop, elephant, the storage. Whenever we want to store any data, the storage will happen inside the HDFS. And there are certain tools which process the data that is on HDFS. Those are nothing but you will see here, Hive. This is one tool which is used to process big data. And there is another thing called Pig, which is used to process big data. And there is another thing called Storm, which is used to process big data. And there is another thing called Solar, which is also used to process big data. There is another thing called HBase, which is used to store big data in a different format. And apart from that, we have this, our friend called MapReduce. So which is basically used to process the big data. So this is all your data access layer. And this is our data storage layer. And coming to the security. In security also we have a lot of other things. Okay? To make the big data cluster more secure, we can install Kerberos, which we have seen in our engineerings and masters, right? Key authentication protocols, Kerberos, Ranger, encryption, everything we can make it. So that all falls under the security. And someone administrator will come who has to monitor the cluster and who has to take care of all the clusters. That particular thing can be done, by these are the things, operations. By using Ambari, by using Zookeeper, and to schedule the jobs we have Oozie. See how the ecosystem of big data is. We have Oozie, and coming to the data governance, we have Falcon, we have Flume, Scoop, okay, WebHDFS. Guys, don't get distracted. I just want to give you some vocabulary, okay? You just consider them as a scrolling titles of a Hollywood movie. You have so many things as the scrolling titles, but few things we require it. Okay, just I want to give you a short of a look of some vocabularies in the big data picture, whether it is relevant to you at this point of time or whether it is irrelevant for you at this point of time. But I just want to mention all these terms before. Okay, tomorrow when you hear some term, you can recollect, oh, this is something related to big data. That's what I want to make this point very much clear here.